Could you imagine feeling hurt and scared around a person who is only supposed to love and care for you? This is the sad reality for thousands of kids who are abused every year in the United States. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, physical abuse has increased 84% since 1980, making child abuse a growing epidemic in the United States. As a psych student, I have the unfortunate knowledge of how child abuse affects children. Even though I do not have kids, I understand the importance of knowing about abuse. With this knowledge, myself, and hopefully others, can help children prosper into well-rounded adults. In this speech, we are going to discuss what child abuse is, what the signs are, and how to report it. There are many misconceptions about child abuse, so it is important to know exactly what it is. Child abuse is when a parent or caregiver causes harm, injury, or death to a child. That being said, child abuse is not strictly physical. There are actually 4 different kinds. The first is sexual abuse, which is defined as a sexual act carried out by an adult with a child. The other form of abuse is physical, which is when an adult causes bodily harm to a child, such as hitting, scratching, or kicking them. Abuse can also come in the form of neglect, which means that a parent or caregiver is not meeting the age-appropriate care for the child. Neglected children can tend to lack food, clothing, or means of shelter. Lastly, and perhaps the most misunderstood of the 4, is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is not physical but psychological. Emotional abuse includes ignoring, corrupting, or verbally assaulting children. Along with knowing the different kinds of child abuse, understanding the common demographics of child abuse is also important. Sadly, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources reported that 76% of child abuse cases were with children ages 3 years and younger. This could be due to the fact that abusers tend to go for children who are still developing and may lack the ability to voice their abuse. Also, abuse occurs mostly in certain areas. For example, low-income cities have reported higher percentages of neglect. Along with this, cities with high percentages of violence also report higher levels of physical abuse. Another important demographic is that child abuse is more common in families where substance abuse is present. These are all things to look for and to consider. Now that we know a little bit about what child abuse is, we can learn about the telltale signs. There are many signs that point to child abuse, some more obvious than others. In physical abuse cases, the signs are simply exterior and are easier to spot. Any unexplained bruising, cuts, burns, or other injuries are common among kids who are abused. Also, if a kid consistently has dirty, ill-fitting clothes, it could mean that the child is experiencing some form of neglectful care. Other abuse cases are more difficult to spot. Some of the hints that abuse is taking place may be present in their actions, speeches, or behaviors. A child who is being emotionally abused can act in a variety of abnormal behaviors. Some abused children act with aggressive behavior, while others can be fearful and withdrawn. Some kids may act out in aggression they receive at home, such as hitting other children or adults. On the other hand, some can act fearful and flinch when someone simply touches them. Further signs can be found in their speech and actions. If a child has more knowledge of violent and sexual behavior than the average child, consider it a red flag. A lot of children's knowledge is based off of their own experiences, and this could mean that sexual or physical abuse is taking place. Moreover, abused children can show fear of going home. A child that shows signs of fear of going home, this is possible that is because that violence is happening at the house. This should not be taken lightly, and all you need is a reasonable cause, suspicion, or belief to make a report. This brings me to my final and most important part. If you believe a child is being abused, there are a few steps you can take. First of all, if it is safe, talk to the child in a calm and reassuring way. Reassure them that everything will be okay and that they did nothing wrong. Let the child speak in their own words and don't interrupt them. Simply listen and maybe make a few mental notes. If you think that talking to a child will threaten the safety of the child or even yourself, refrain from talking to them and report them to professionals. If you are able to, and you suspect that child abuse is taking place, you can also report it to the child's school. Schools have a lot of resources that can help them to report it to other people and to take the appropriate action. Also, you can also report it to a hotline, which is one of my favorite ways and something that I would do if I would ever saw a child abuse case as well. Hotlines are great because even if you don't have a reasonable cause, you can always go there to tell them any of your observations about what's happening, and they can talk to you about where to go from there. It could prove to be helpful to keep a journal of places, times, and people, as well as some of the signs that child abuse is taking place, so that you can tell them exactly what you believe is going on. They will investigate the case and handle the situation in the best way. Hotlines are the best way to report observations, and there's absolutely no harm in calling. Knowing what child abuse is, the signs of it, and what to do about it is so important to society. Even though we think we will never have to report a child abuse, statistics show us that it surrounds us. The fact that it is happening and that is it affecting us is enough reason to learn more about it. I hope the information I presented you with will give you further insight to what child abuse actually is, the signs of it, and what we can do to help those in those situations. As Nelson Mandela once said, there can be no keener revelation of society's soul than the way it treats its children.